Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the Battlesmith Artificer. If you like what we do here, please like, share, and subscribe. Please keep commenting. We love to hear about the characters you're playing, some of the things you've done, and some of the great, awesome things your DMs have helped you with. It's always a pleasure to hear from you guys. So please keep commenting. And without further ado, we're going to jump right into the video. The Artificer comes to us from Eberron Rising from the Last War and was again reprinted in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. The Artificer was the latest class to be added, as there haven't been any new classes added since them, or before them it was just everything that came out with the player's handbook. The Artificer is a very interesting concept. You gotta really take magic as a different kind of entity when using an Artificer. It's really built around constructing things, technological advances, and yeah, it gets magic spells, but in a lot of ways it's really better suited is if you have technology, or the technology that you actually create cause the spell effect to happen. I think that really works really well with the Artificer, and I think that's what really brings it closer to the real realm that D&D is. That being said, Eberron is a very, very wild adventure as far as like the way the world is set up there, the way that technology has advanced, because normally in D&D you think maybe catapults and trebuchets are probably the highest advancement of technology that is around. In Eberron, they're making artificial limbs. There's magic items for artificial lungs. Like, what the Artificer can do can basically build you a prosthetic body if need be. And that is a very different step. So a lot of times DMs are really hesitant for putting Artificers in. Talk to your DM. I think there's nothing wrong with the class. I think it works really well. And I think the more creative you are with how your machinations reflect in your machinery really gives you this great idea for a character. At level 3, you're going to get 4 abilities, one of which is bonus proficiencies. This is great because you do require this for one of your other abilities we're going to talk about. It's going to be the last one. But it gives you proficiency in Smith's tools. If you already have that proficiency, it gives you the option to pick another artisan tools of your choice to be proficient in. Dependent on how the game works that you're playing is really going to affect how important this ability is. If you're actually crafting items, if the rules for crafting are a little bit more applicable than the player's handbook rules, or if you're cool with that investment of time in game and gold that the player's handbook rules out, you are going to enjoy this because you can pick up other great things and really work together to make something awesome happen. Again, it's crafting, so really talk to your DM about that. The second ability you're going to get is Battlesmith Spells. This is a group of spells that whenever you hit level 3, 5, 9, 13, or 17, you're going to gain 2 more spells that you know. They don't count against your spells known. A lot of these are defensive and utility abilities, which is very beneficial considering what your Battlesmith Artificer is going to assume as a role and how that affects the party and some of the other skills. So it's a good thing to have because it's really going to enforce what you're doing and kind of your position on the field of battle. You also gain access to Battle Ready, which is a very, very cool ability. I think this is very great for a few reasons, and I'll get into that in just a second. What happens when you hit 3rd level and gain access to this ability is your combat training and experiments with magics have paid off in 2 ways. First off, you get proficiency in martial weapons, so now everything is available to you, which is great. But it really comes down to this next ability that really solidifies why this is awesome. When you attack with a magic weapon, you can use your intelligence modifier instead of your strength or dexterity modifier for the attack and damage rolls. This limits your need for other ability scores to be prominent. You can really double down on intelligence. If you start out with just a 14 in dex, you're pretty covered for medium armor. You can dump everything else wherever you want. You gain more access to feats if you allow them, or if you're playing in games with them. So you have a lot of great options for you. This really cracks open what you can do with the Battlesmith Artificer. And this is really something I think is very incredible because of how it works with the synergy of your other and final level 3 ability, which is the reason why most of us are going to be wanting to play this class. The final ability you get at level 3 is the Steel Defender. There is a little bit of text I gotta read, just please bear with me. Your tinkering has borne you a faithful companion, a Steel Defender, which is friendly to you and your companions. It obeys your commands. It has a stat block, which we'll go over, and we're not going to go full into detail of it because it's a stat block. I don't want to waste too much time going over it. But it uses your proficiency bonus in several places, so that will advance gradually. You will determine a creature's appearance, which is always great. You can determine when it has 2 legs, 4, however you want, but your choice does not affect the game statistics. So if you give it a fire-breathing dragon head, it does not breathe fire. In combat, the defender shares your initiative. It takes its action immediately after yours, and it can move and use its reaction on its own. The only action it can take is the dodge action unless you take a bonus action on your turn to command it to take another action. The action can be one of its stat block or another action. Help, push, shove, any of those things like that. If you are incapacitated, the defender can take any action of its choice, not just dodge. The Mending spell, which is a cantrip, if you cast it on the Steel Defender, it will regain 2d6 hit points. If it has died within the last hour, you can use your smith tools as an action to revive it, provided you are within 5 feet of it and you have at least a spell slot of first level or higher available. The Steel Defender then returns to life after a minute with all of its hit points restored. There's a lot to unpack here. First and foremost, the proficiency bonus increase is really to help keep pace with your other abilities, with your leveling, so that way you don't just build it up by giving it ASIs, because that, I guess, would be too overpowered. I haven't really played that out, but it's just something to consider. And it's a good way to keep it moving forward and keep advancing with you, which is always a great thing. In combat, the way you really work this out depends on what you want to do with it. It has an attack move. I believe it is called Force Empowered Rend. It's a melee weapon attack. It uses your spell modifier to hit, and it has a range of 5 feet. It does 1d8 plus your proficiency bonus in force damage. And it also has a repair ability, which will restore 2d8 plus your proficiency bonus in hit points to itself. And it has a reaction, which is it imposes disadvantage on the attack roll of a creature that it can see within 5 feet of it, provided the attack roll is against another creature that is not the defender. It's pretty great, actually. When you first get it, it's 2 plus your intelligence modifier plus 5 times your artificer level. So that ends up being, say you started out with a plus 3, that's 5 plus 15. It says 20 HP at level 3. Which is pretty good, and 15 natural armor. So it's pretty survivable. Its armor really doesn't go up that high, but understand that you can revive it after a minute with just 1 spell slot. So when you advance in level, those level 1 spell slots become still something very important to you. It's not just a spell slot just for shield, just in case. It becomes your resource to keep this thing going. And you can heal it with a cantrip. So as soon as the fight ends, you can spend that time to heal it up right back to full. The reason why this works out so well is its attacks come off of your intelligence modifier. And you boost that up because you do have access to battle ready, so intelligence is going to be very important to you. You can use a number of things with martial weapons. You can use anything that has range. You could use halberds. Understand that battle ready requires a magical weapon. You do get Artificer infusions that may or may not turn weapons into magic weapons, because it's required a simpler martial weapon and you can turn it into a +1. And it says it's a magic weapon, but it doesn't say whether or not you can convert it. Definitely talk that out with your DM. I'm not going to go through infusions with you because there's a lot to deal with and a lot of different functioning parts within them. This is a great setup. because you can have this thing in front of you and you can use a halberd from behind. You can have this in front of you and you can be that ranger-like class with a pet and use a longbow and use your intelligence to shoot that all the way across the world. It's a great concept. It's really based on the Beastmaster Ranger that was a real mess, and I still think that the best answer is a combination between them, but I'm going to do that video after this and really compare. But this solidifies that. This is a great way to keep your ability scores focused. It's a great way to have a cool pet that you can have look however you want. It is a very powerful entity because it's a bonus action. It's a bonus action to deal an extra 1d8 per turn and have an opportunity to have anything that hits you swing with disadvantage on a regular reaction. It's a great boon. It's a great way to have it run through traps, run back, mend it real quick, run it through, run it back, mend it, and you really alleviate a lot of issues with traps, and you have that great artificer mind to it. And that's what's really cool, because this becomes your one thing. This becomes a great endeavor that you build constantly. You always are working on this thing. This is your pride and joy. You can make it whatever you want. You can make it as scary as humanly possible. You can make it look whatever you want, which is always great. I think multiple legs and tentacles and weird things and like a third eye or just like a squirming thing around as a sensory array. I like it. I can get gross with it. I'm all for it. This is your real ability. This is what offsets what you do, because if you take it off as a part of your character and not a separate entity, that's where you see the strength of it. That's where your Frankenstein monster becomes awesome. I would definitely work with my DM in order to make this a Frankenstein-like monster, because that's just cool. But if you take this as just a pet, as an entity on its own, which a lot of people do when they see this, you'll never see the full scope of what this thing can do. You'll always see it as something else. Oh, you can just cast Fireball and it'll probably not survive, making it useless. If you want to play it and keep it right next to you, that'll end up being that way. But if you want to consider it as an extra 30 HP that keeps you around and helps you, then it makes your character have 30 more HP. It makes your character have, especially right when you get it, everything has disadvantage attacking you as long as you didn't get attacked more than once per round. It gives you an option to have a buffer. You can make this thing very short so that way you can swing the halberd up over its head and just back away and dodge it, so you don't need a shield. Like, you can do a lot of cool things with it. You really have to just get around this idea of it being a separate thing and it being you. And when it becomes that extension of who you are, that's when you're really now an artificer. That's when your technology is an extension of yourself. That's what your magic is. It's your grinding gears and putting magic stones in the right place, so when they shatter, it causes this reaction. That's all part of you, and you're fusing it into metal and steel and rock and whatever you can to make it go, and that's your gift. That's your talent, and this is a great way to enforce that, a great way to make your character believe in that steel defender and make that his pride and joy or her pride and joy, and that is what connects you to this kind of a build. At 5th level, you gain access to extra attack. The interesting thing about extra attack is now your perception of an artificer is morphing. Because of battle ready, you have access to use your intelligence modifier for your martial weapons or whatever weapons you're using, which I figure you probably have a magical weapon at this point. So you kind of reflect the warlock in a lot of ways. Because you are wearing medium armor, you are using intelligence for your attack and damage rolls. So you are very similar to the Hexblade just with that. You gain access to spells. You're a half caster, so you're not exactly like a warlock, but you do have spells at your arsenal, and you do have a steel defender. So you have a lot of things going for you, but who are you as an artificer? Are you really swinging that hard? Are you really running around and casting spells? Like, it's a very interesting concept, and how to reflect that with what you do in combat is very interesting. This is a great fallback. If you want to burn your spell slots first and then just hang back and then use this. Or maybe you're just going to use range cantrips to get the job done, and then if that's not working out and you do have to get in, you can now switch it up into melee, which works out very well for you. Because again, you're wearing medium armor, you have access to a shield, so you can go toe-to-toe right next to your construct and still rock out pretty well if you have the construct giving you disadvantage when you get attacked. That works out. It's very interesting. You do have a great option to be a backup melee fighter with this and still go into the other back rows if you don't need to be. It gives you a lot of play, and it gives you the opportunity to be smart, not only in what your character does outside of combat, but what your character does inside of combat. And I always bring up a concept of role-playing while you're in combat. This is a great way to show how your character supports the people around you. Because as an artificer grows and it gets infusions, it does get the ability to give other people infusions and build up their best strengths, or reinforce something that is really a weakness that needs to be compensated for, so they can survive or they can do whatever their job is. Incorporating to your character, depending on how you're planning on using the infusions, I'm a big fan of, hey, if you want to use it for yourself, that's your character, do it. I'm not here to police your resources and tell you need to give me something because you selected this class, because I hate it when that happens to me. So you can create different things and work around different objectives and see things in combat as a problem for you to answer. And changing yourself and being very versatile and jumping back and forth is a great way to enjoy your character's flexibility. It's a great way to keep your DM challenged in combat, because they might have to see some things and go, well, if you're up front, it's a little easier for me to take care of stuff. But if you're in the back and you're throwing things that can hit multiple people, or you're doing other things that are dangerous, I might need to get to you. And now you don't know how your DM's going to react to what you do, and it might cause very cool combat encounters, because combat is now exciting for you and you can use your brain and really kind of dictate what you do, and the DM might want to compensate for that, so you'll never see the same combat twice, or at least have better chances of unique things happening. And that's where the fun happens, when things get a little off the rails, or you have that opportunity to be different. At 9th level, you gain access to Arcane Jolt. You've learned new ways to channel arcane energy to harm or heal. When either you hit a target with a magic weapon attack, or your steel defender hits a target, you can channel magical energy through the strike to create one of the following effects. The target takes an extra 2d6 force damage, or you can choose one creature or object you can see within 30 feet of the target, and healing energy flows into the chosen recipient, restoring 2d6 hit points to it. You can use this energy a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier, and you can do so no more than once per turn. You regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. This is great because it ups your damage. It's another way to reinforce how important intelligence is to you, and it's a great way to keep some of your party members going up and keep them going. You can revive people that just got downed, and all it took you was like one charge. You can save this for when you really need it. I think this is more of an ability where if you see something big, or if you see some of your party members starting to take a lot of damage, this is a great way to keep them going. You can have this up, and you can have Aura Vitality going at the same time, and then you're producing a lot of healing per turn. You just have to make sure to work with your steel defender to hit something, or really work with what you're doing. Arcane Jolt is one of those abilities that obviously has a wide range. You can hurt or you can heal, and it's your option who or what to do. You can heal objects, which is interesting. So if you're trying to hold a door, or hold something from collapsing, or keeping a wall intact or something, you can send your steel defender to it or whatever, and you can wail on something and send restoring energy to whatever it is. It depends on the circumstance you're in for that specific thing to happen, but keeping your mind open to those things can be very valuable if you are in a scenario where you can. You want to make sure that you're very creative with your abilities, because that's some things that is very hard to see coming and can be very exciting when it does happen. And plus, you feel good when you come up with the concept of how to use something in a different way and it actually pans out. It's just a very cool ability. I think it's great to see just like arcing lightning coming through something and doing various different things. It sounds cool, it looks cool, and it's not a lot of extra damage. You are 9th level, so 2d6 doesn't seem to be a lot, but when you can drop it 5 times, that adds up, you know? Keep it in your mind. Try to use it. Don't go a full day and never use it. Always try to get some use out of it. Always keep it going, because you don't want to sit on your abilities and go, oh, I saved it and I never used it. At 15th level, you gain access to the final Battlesmith ability, Improved Defender. When you hit 15th level, your Arcane Jolt and Steel Defender become more powerful. The extra damage and healing done by Arcane Jolt increases to 4d6. Your Steel Defender gains +2 to its armor class, bumping it up to 17 if you haven't found a way to unnaturally increase it on your own. Whenever your Steel Defender uses its deflect attack, which is its reaction ability, the attacker takes force damage equal to 1d4 plus your intelligence modifier. The 1d4 plus your intelligence modifier doesn't seem like a lot at 15th level, but understand it is the best reaction for your Steel Defender to take, and you will be taking it often, unless your enemies are really going for the Steel Defender first, which is perfectly fine and really the best option for you and your party, because it'll eliminate a huge amount of damage that you will take. The extra damage is just going to add up over time. That can be 1d4 per turn. Every turn it adds up, plus your intelligence modifier, so it's doing at worst 6, at best 9 for free, basically, and causing disadvantage. If they miss, it still takes this damage. If they hit, it takes the damage. It's a great boon to this ability. The +2 to the armor class makes your 15 a 17. Again, maybe there's ways. It's steel. It could be a suit of armor. Maybe you could apply armor to it. Maybe you can find something to incorporate armor to it, like take apart a magic item or give it the bracers or a cloak or something that adds it to its defense. There's a lot of things. You can work with your DM to see what you can do. I'm pretty sure you can find a way to up its defense a little bit more, but at a 17, not so bad. Especially since it's built supposedly to take hits and not be as threatening on the battlefield as others, so it can keep them safer, because it is a defender and not an aggressor. And that's something that you should really be, especially in the later levels, understanding the benefit for. And increasing Arcane Jolt just ups your damage or ups the survivability of what you're doing. It can go anywhere. It's very beneficial to you. You should be using it whenever you get the opportunity to do so. Try to make it worth it, but don't not use it because you're thinking you're going to fight something bigger or whatever. Any healing done by the Arcane Jolt is healing that doesn't have to be done by a spell slot, doesn't have to be done by a potion or anything like that. It's not a lot sometimes, but over time it can be. So damage is always a great option. If you can't kill it fast enough, sometimes it's more important to get a party member up in order to do it. Action economy, this is a great way to keep that going. So try and keep that in mind. And it's just a big buff for all the things that you should be doing all the time. Our final thoughts. The Steel Defender gives you this incredible opportunity to create something and have it be meaningful. You can really depend a lot on it. And as I mentioned before, making this statement that is a defender helps really to bring out one of the better options it's for. And especially once you hit 15th level, that really is getting reinforced by the improved deflect attack. That's very beneficial to you. And try and really connect with it. You know, like really make this thing almost like it's alive. Make it pretend it's Jarvis from Iron Man or Vision when he's first created. Like make that kind of a connection and you can really have a lot of fun with it. You can give it a voice and have it talk back to you if you want. I don't see a reason not to. You can make these things have incredible opportunities to impact not just your combat ability, but your story as well. It's your Steel Defender. Giving it a voice box, you can make it respond for you. You know, like if somebody asks you a question, it can respond. You can use that as a deterrent. You can use that in case something's trying to intimidate you and you're not very good at charisma, but you want an automaton to tell them this is going to be bad if you continue. It's a great way to enforce the strength of your character and how your intelligence is your strength, because you're using this entity to do the things that you're not comfortable with. Maybe your character's a little strange and weary and nervous around other people. This is how they talk to them. You know what I mean? Like maybe he has like some sort of strange keypad or whatever or something, or some way that he can etch something to cause sounds to be replayed through it. And it works. And that's how he talks to strangers, or how he communicates or she communicates with the other people, or when things get scary and it needs to be spoken up for, this thing can take over. And this thing can have that ability for it. So now you can play this weak character, and you can play this incredible strong character, and you can meld them together and jump back and forth between them. And it's a great thing that no one really gets to enjoy, but you're an artificer. You create, magic exists. There's magic spells that cause words or sounds to appear. Like, that's really you. That's really all available to you at your fingertips, because you're creating magic through your technological advances. I really always encourage artificers, instead of doing like, oh, like I cast fireball, like no, like you throw a grenade and an explosion occurs, like, or maybe you mix two chemicals together and throw it, and then it just, and it's just an acid splash or whatever. That better reflects what an artificer is. It's beating magic with pure brain sparks. You know what I mean? Like it's power that is not restricted to the arcane, but still uses arcane because it's created its own by using natural elements. It's very cool, and really seeing that incorporated and seeing that grow and become the norm for artificers is really going to bring up I feel like the more prevalence that they have and the more often that you see them, because you're just such an alternative, and you're such a great use for the intelligence stat, which widely goes pretty unused, and really nobody feels the importance of it, because yeah, you play a wizard, but you know, you cast a couple of spells, or you have every spell in the world, but your intelligence really doesn't reflect beyond arcane knowledge. And as an artificer, you have proficiencies in a lot of things and most tools, and you can always do something, and build something and create something and solve a solution without using magic. And yeah, wizards can do that, but it doesn't make them seem smarter. It makes them seem like they just flipped through a guidebook or just YouTubed how to figure out how to do something and then just follow the thing, where an artificer will look at it and go, all right, let me take it apart from the beginning and see if anything's misplaced. No, let me put it back then. Like, you have this beautiful curiosity, and you can do this mad science stuff with Artificer, and it's so easy. I encourage you, make a homunculus out of this Steel Defender. Put organs together and run it through with copper wiring or whatever and make it viable. Like, that is my Steel Defender. You know, make the Terminator robot, whatever. It's a giant metal skeleton doing what I want it to. Yes, that is cool, and you can really set this wonderful RP moment of a detachment to humanity. You know, like, your Steel Defender becomes your muse. You're just like this entire like love interest that you want to make it perfect. So everything you do is to perfect it, and then everything else doesn't matter, because eventually you're just going to make millions of these Steel Defenders. And it's going to be gross and so weird, but it could be a lot of fun. If you stayed through to hear me get gross and weird, I am so sorry, but thank you for sticking through and watching all the way through. I appreciate you guys for giving us a chance. We just hit 450 subscribers, so it's a very big moment for us. Very happy. Thank you for commenting. Please keep sharing and subscribing, and thank you for giving a Spooky Kid a chance.